You are listening to episode 10 of the EU Startups podcast. Today, we're talking about the status quo and future of coworking with the co-founders and CEOs of Betahaus and Talentgarden. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the EU Startups podcast. Aside of the travel, hospitality and events industry, also other sectors like office and co-working spaces have been impacted quite heavily by the ongoing pandemic. To learn more about the status quo and future of co-working spaces, our head of content, Charlotte Tucker, had a conversation with Madeleine Gummer von Mohl, the co-founder and CEO of Betahaus, and with Davide Dattoli, the co-founder and CEO of Talentgarden. But before we jump into this conversation, please let me say a big thank you to our sponsor. The EU Startups podcast is powered by ShareWorks by Morgan Stanley. Combining cutting-edge technology with outstanding client service, ShareWorks by Morgan Stanley provides solutions designed for the unique needs of startups. ShareWorks by Morgan Stanley simplifies the complexities of equity plan management, helps you engage with your employees, and provides your business with the tools it needs to comply with local and regulatory requirements. As an integrated platform, everything from HRIS integration to audit-ready financial reporting works together seamlessly for improved accuracy, collaboration, and decision-making. For more information, visit shareworks.com or check out the link in our show notes to schedule a free demo.
So for today's episode of the EU Startups podcast, we are talking about the future of co-working and actually working spaces in general. As we continue to work from home, we're questioning what's in store for our working environments in 2021 and beyond. So for this discussion, we're very lucky to be joined by two big names in the European co-working space, Madeleine Gummer von Mohl, I hope I said your name right.
Yes.
Who is co-founder and CEO of Betahaus, which has so far co-working spaces in Berlin, Hamburg, Sevilla, and Barcelona, and a huge global network of 150 co-working spaces worldwide. And also Davide Dattoli, I hope I also pronounced your name correctly, who is founder of Talentgarden, a European co-working network with 28 spaces, which is spread over 8 countries. So thank you both for joining us. At the beginning, maybe you could both explain to us briefly for our listeners how you started. So how you started Talentgarden in 2011, how you started Betahaus in 2009, and how they've grown since then. Davide, you could start.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were thinking about the idea of creating an environment in which different talents coming from the tech background can meet together, can stay together, and can connect with each other. And in 2011, we decided to open our first space in Brescia, that is a small city in the north part of Italy. And after that, we understood that the model of bringing talents together and creating for them opportunities of growing, of networking, of learning was the real need of all the tech industry. And so during the last 8 years, we were scaling Talentgarden before all over Italy. And after in Spain, in Austria, in Ireland, and in many other countries across the different countries of Europe, with the idea of trying to creating a network of talents in which you can find in Talentgarden not only a space where you can work, but also a school where you can really find the skills that you need to grow and to succeed in your professional career, in a place to connect with other talents all over Europe.
Awesome. So Madeleine, maybe you could give us a very similar little snippet of how you started and grown.
Yes. So we started in 2008, sitting together and discussing how we would love to work and live. And back then we had a little student agency which had their own office place, but the office place was always too small or too large. It was never really fitting. So we thought, why don't we start something. I have to admit, back then I didn't know that it was called coworking, what we started. So we called it Betahaus. So we wanted to start something where we could work flexibly and all our freelance friends. And from day one, we had a long waiting list because back then nothing like this was existing in Berlin or in Germany. So we were pretty lucky. We always had more requests than space. So we grew pretty fast within the first month. And I think after half a year, there was the first request from another city, which was Hamburg, if we want to open up something there, and then Sofia and Barcelona. And we also tried out something in Cologne. So the beginning was super, super fast. There were so many requests and so many new things that we almost crashed down, I have to say, because there was too many opportunities and we were frankly very young back then. So after 3 years, we did something like a restart where we sat down again and said, okay, what is it what we really want to do? It is co-working, only co-working, nothing else than co-working. No university, no camps, no, what did we add? We had lots of different things. And then we restarted from the scratch. And since then, we're trying to really focus on the core product, which is co-working. And I have to say, during the last half year, I felt, it reminded me a lot of our beginning times. But we probably will talk about this later.
So you've both been around since the beginning of the co-working concepts, and you've actually both shaped what co-working means and how people perceive co-working in Europe, which is a really big achievement. So I have a question for both of you about growing internationally. You both obviously started in your current locations, and then you've expanded nationally and then internationally. So how have you kept the soul of each location that you've expanded into, adapting to the local environments, but you've also managed to keep your wider brands alive, so your wider Betahaus and wider Talentgarden brands, without diminishing the local uniqueness of each place. So how have you done that? How have you achieved that? So maybe Davide, you could go first again.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were thought a lot about how to scale Talentgarden, because obviously it's all the time very nice concept, the idea of scaling, but it's also try to understand what you really want to keep and what has to be the local soul. So what we decided is that we define somehow some principles and few activity that has to be the same. One of it is the design. Each Talentgarden has a similar style across the different location. Another one is the type of branding and positioning in the market. And the third one is about the content that we try to scale across the different space. But what we want to keep local, it's about the activity and the connection with the local ecosystem. And what we try to do in every city is try to be the reference point for all the people at international level that want to feel at home. Also, they're based in Barcelona, in Madrid, in Milan, in Copenhagen, or whatever. So we try to localize around 50% of our content and activity, and we try to centralize the other 50% to keep a global flavor. And that's we believe is the best way of scaling a network of innovation space across Europe, with the idea of really try to work and focus everything on the team. People are what make the difference, are the one who are able to attract their community, are the one able to make the difference and connect with the city overall, not only with the tech ecosystem, but also with all the local institutions, corporates, and players. So it's really key to find the right people, give them at least 50% autonomously, and let them fly.
So are there some aspects that you always hand over to the local spaces, that 50%?
Absolutely. Like the design of each space, it's very similar. Obviously, each building has its own soul, so the design adapt a little bit. But when you enter in one Talentgarden in another one, you always feel at home. And this for us is key, exactly as the fact that whatever you are in Talentgarden in Vienna or in Copenhagen, we will give you the same quality of courses. So we are making bootcamp courses for coding, for user experience, for digital marketing. You can find exactly the same content with the same quality, with the same approach. But obviously, we have some local faculty. Most of the time are a member of our co-working space, but also decide to invest some of their time in teaching in our courses. Obviously, we pay them. But the idea is really creating an ecosystem where internal people, external people, where the students, the members, the corporates can collaborate together.
And Madeleine, how does it compare for you in Betahaus?
Yeah, I can also underline that what you said is that it's a lot about the people, So we rather think about the personality and tone what our brand has than only how do we look, Of course, in the beginning we thought, okay, we have to write a brand manual like McDonald's, but this is not what's the soul of co-working. The soul of co-working is how do you host people, how do you create community, how do you create a reliable connections between each other. And especially during the last half year, we have been seeing that this is like the core thing of Betahaus, the people stick together, they help each other even through difficult times, and they see it as a home, not only as a workspace, but also as a home and as a family. And this is where we put a lot of effort in, we really, really look into who are the people we're working together and how can we train them to become and create this home for our community. But of course, we're also working on brand manual and having rules and guidance and workshops and whatever. You constantly have to look at it. But we also encourage a lot of freedom, so to say. So Betahaus Barcelona has its own style. Betahaus Hamburg has a more northern, pragmatic style. And Betahaus Berlin is like the core Betahaus, the beginning where we test out a lot of things. And if something works out very well, then the other houses take it over. Yeah.
So you both mentioned that the people of the community being the center of the co-working and how it builds and how it grows. Over the last 10 years or so, how have you noticed that the concept of co-working has been created, has grown? And do you see any way that it's changed? The idea of the community or the kinds of things that you offer to the people that work there?
I mean, for me, what I see is that we attract different target groups than we attract in the beginning. In the beginning, of course, we only thought about creative single freelancers, and then the first startups came, and then some small agencies. But nowadays, even big corporates are our clients and becoming part of the community. And how do you still balance this out? If a manager of a big corporate comes in with his tie and suit and wants to be served like he's usually been served at his own headquarters, and then host him with open arms, but still make sure that he adapts to the community, that we don't all dance around him now. And then how do we create situations where he can get to know people he usually from his background, I would say, would never maybe interact professionally. And now we can create moments where he can learn from startups, learn from freelancers, and vice versa. And then we have one thing in our personality or values, we are playful. We don't take ourselves too seriously. And this is kind of like for most of the situations very important, that we always look around and say, okay, what's in front of us and how can we deal with that and how can we make the best out of it for both sides? Yeah.
That example you gave of how to interact also with corporates and people who are maybe not used to working as freelancers or as consultants, to kind of bring them into the discussion. So Davide, how have things changed for you over the past 10 years?
I think that this sector went from, I can say, more an association mood and very informal and really, really somehow driven only by the passion to something that is becoming way more professional also. it became a job. It became clear that is not only a movement, but is something more. It can become also business. 10 years ago, seems that was more something no profit. Today, obviously, it goes on the opposite, on the idea that it's also a business, difficult business, but it's a business. So I think the market evolves a lot. People now knows what co-working does it mean, what flexible space does it mean, and also starts to understand the difference between the different players. Because at the beginning was more about really the one or two founder of a space, and you decide to go in that space more for that. While today, people are also way more interested about the facility itself. They expect a way more high quality. They believe that they want to attach themselves into a brand, into a community, into a manifesto where they believe into. And so we start to see, in particular with cities where there are plenty of co-working, that really members decide which are the campus that they prefer based on the culture that there is inside. So there are from the global player like WeWork or spaces that are really professional, but maybe very low quality of community. With on the opposite, a lot of very, very local players, 100% community and 0% quality of the facility. And somehow in the middle, there are obviously a lot of players in the market and opportunities. So I think that really in the last 10 years, this sector became from a I can say association and movement to something that is a business and a real sector.
And of course, things are changing rapidly now because of the coronavirus pandemic, as we all know. So how have you been adapting to the situation, given that co-working over the past 10 years have been focused on a physical community? How have you been going digital? How have you been adapting? We've already seen that some spaces have already collapsed, like Tech Hub London. So how are you moving forward, and what have you been doing the past couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, Davide, what you just said about becoming more professional, we of course also went through this phase. So I would say the last years were all about being super professional, high professional in every area, and also becoming a little bit snobby, I would say, because we had so many requests and so long waiting list for our headquarter in Kreuzberg. And now I think during the last 6 months, we became more humble again, you know, a little bit more like, okay, we have to be flexible and we have to really listen to the needs of everyone who's entering our house and door. And then during the lockdowns, really negotiation with our members, tenants, with our landlords, that was tough as well. Then adapting day by day to the new laws. For me personally, I think the biggest challenge was, which I took really serious, how to keep my team safe and motivated during this last month, because most of them are also very young, very new in Berlin. Most of their families are abroad, and going through a lockdown as a single person being new in Berlin is tough, you know. And of course, for us as team, it wasn't difficult to work remotely. Most of our meetings are virtually anyway. But it was a challenge to create this sense of community, which we normally have in this space. And there we set up a virtual platform where you can now attend all of the normal community events we have. We had to close down our events department because right now, of course, there are no events allowed. And we are now renting out some of the event spaces for long-term usage for tenants as team spaces. And I have to say, we have a total new client group, and these are big corporates with their own office spaces who are now desperately looking for support in how to change their office structure into a more flexible and something adaptable for the new way how people will work in the future. And this is it's a great chance for us.
Yeah, I think also that somehow we have to be honest and say that 2020 and 2021 will be very tough for all the co-working spaces. It's is not something to try to not to say, but on the opposite, we really see, as Madeleine also just said, the big opportunity. Because we are receiving every week, I can say, hundreds of different requests on somehow a new market that has a little bit changed compared to before. So for sure, we see a lot of corporates, a lot of companies that before were thinking of with 100 employees having an office of 100 people, while today maybe they take 20, 30 desks into a co-working space, and they give their employee the possibility of flexibility and coming to the office only a few hours a week or a few days a week. So a lot of this new target is coming on into the market. So we see a huge potential growth on this side, but also a lot of freelancer, or in particular with also people that has a full-time job that work for tech company like Facebook and Google and all this type of company, that are not allowed to go to their office for the next 6 months and probably also more. And so they decide to still go to a co-working space because they don't want to work from home. So we see on both these new targets a huge opportunity of growth, where somehow new key clients are coming to the market with a huge potential. But obviously in the short term, not having events, having less people in the campus and so on, and all the restriction for the security and all the investment required for cleaning is something that is put a lot of player under pressure.
Yeah, I would say like finally the whole society knows how important co-working or flexible workspace is. Finally they could all be our members, and it's a great situation. Yeah.
So do you both feel that even larger corporates, this could be the opportunity for them to really understand that flexible working and home working does actually work, and they can trust their employees, and that home working will be here to stay, even at least partially for some people, a few days a week, or rotating between their co-workers?
Yeah, I think it will be a mixture out of working from home, working from the headquarter, which might be in the future a bit smaller, and then working in between in flexible workspaces like co-working spaces nearby. Because in Berlin, for example, the apartment market is super tough, and hardly no one has their own office at home. They have to work from the kitchen table or from the sleeping room. And if you have young kids who are sometimes at home as well, then it's like a nightmare. And then if your employer says, okay, you're not allowed to come to the office, then you have to look for something else. And this could be us.
So are you going to be targeting these new potential co-workers who are part of larger corporates or like traditional office workers? Would you be targeting them individually, or will you be making partnerships with the corporates themselves, or are you just kind of seeing how it develops organically?
I mean, we right now we attack them from both sides.
Yeah, in this period you cannot wait. You have to attack, and you have really to go to scout for your members and to scout with potential opportunity, because I think that as all the crises, there are things that are going down, but also a lot of things that are going up.
Yeah. Okay, so penultimate question. In this pandemic situation, many companies or organizations who traditionally have been competitors, we've seen people pulling together, working together, collaborating. How has this affected the co-working space? Do you believe that spaces are starting to work more together, or do you still feel this kind of more competitive vibe?
I really believe that consolidation of the market will be a natural transformation of this sector, because obviously at the beginning there were hundreds of different players, and now it's going with try to put together the best player and try to create bigger player that are big enough to really make the difference on a European or global level, because unfortunately it will be very, very difficult to see in the future very small space. Unfortunately, because I think that we are losing also a lot of values like this. But for sure, the next 12 months will be so hard that it's also time to consolidate more the sector.
Yeah, I can just underline this. I mean, we always have been very open and in good connection to players where we believe that they work with the same values as we do. So Talentgarden or St. Oberholz, for example, from Berlin. And I also see that some of the big chains are kind of like using the moment to offer super cheap prices and kind of trying to undermine our offers. But I think at the end, the players who have the biggest community will win, you know? So if you have a strong community, a lot of tenants behind you, I think we can survive these times. But of course, it's a very challenging time. And me personally, I believe in something like Betahaus thing.
It's a new brand. It was born here.
Absolutely agree.
Okay, so final question for both of you. What's on the cards for Betahaus and Talentgarden for next year, 2021, so more short term, and then looking sort of medium term, next 5 years or so? Do you have a plan already? Do you have any exciting projects you're working on, something positive that we can look forward to, or are you really just watching how things develop and taking each day as it comes?
Yeah, I mean, I'm working a lot with the big corporates right now, trying to support them to change their offices into more flexible office space. And I really like this challenge because I believe that it will be better for the normal employee to work in a more flexible structure. But we also have one client who has a sports arena, which they want to change into a co-working flexible office space, which is interesting. And then I'm actually also in talk with the Protestant church, who have lots of church buildings in the inner city part, and they also now want to open up to the neighborhoods and implementing co-working. And I always love these kinds of projects, so I think one of these will be coming to life next year.
Exciting. And Davide?
Yeah, we are pretty aligned. We're also working a lot on the idea of growing the community overall. We have our educational side that was booming this year. We were making more than 70% growth compared to last year, because somehow we were able to move a lot of the content that we were doing offline into online, and most of our students are requesting us also more than before the support and the training for staying on the market. So we are really working on scaling and growing our educational part, while in the meantime we are still opening some campuses. We have opened some weeks ago our new campus in Barcelona that is going very well, and we are now opening a new one in Bilbao, a new one in the south of Italy. So we are really concentrating the attention on the evolution of the need of our members to continue on our mission to really create a European platform that can empower people coming out of the tech sector.
That's nice to know that there are some exciting things coming, that things are not just stalling. From exciting new locations like churches to new locations opening. So that's really good news. So that's the end of our interview. So thank you so much for joining me, and have a good rest of November.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for your time.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.